A crossbow, a privy, a bolt through the belly of the most powerful man in Westeros. In the canonical story of Game of Thrones, Tyrion Lannister's escape from the black cells of the Red Keep ends not with flight into the night, but with a detour. 2 detours, actually. The first leads him to his father's chambers, where he finds not Tywin Lannister, but Shae, the woman he loved, the woman who testified against him in his father's bed. The second leads him to the privy, where he finds Tywin sitting on the toilet in the literal and metaphorical sense, stripped of all his dignity, caught in a moment of profound human vulnerability, and yet still unable to stop being Tywin Lannister. Still condescending, still in command, still calling Shae a whore. And Tyrion, who has swallowed a lifetime of contempt and cruelty and exclusion and managed to keep the crossbow level through all of it, cannot swallow the one word. He fires, and then he fires again. And the man who won wars from behind a writing desk, who destroyed houses with ledgers rather than lances, who turned the entire machinery of the Seven Kingdoms into a Lannister instrument, dies on a toilet. It is, in its way, perfect. But today we ask, what if it didn't happen? What if Tyrion, in that final moment, found a reserve of control that his father had spent 40 years trying to destroy? What if he lowered the crossbow? What if Tywin Lannister, the old lion, the warden of the West, the man who made the Lannisters what they are, survived the night? The answer is one of the most fascinating counterfactuals in the entire history of Westeros. Because Tywin Lannister alive changes everything, not just in King's Landing, not just in the Westerlands. Everywhere, every domino that fell after his death stands upright. Every power vacuum he left behind remains filled. Every enemy who grew bold in his absence stays cautious. And for Tyrion, the son he despised, the son he was about to sentence to death, survival means something altogether different and considerably more complicated. Let's find out what happens. To understand this divergence, we need to be precise about the moment we're changing because the details matter enormously. The canonical sequence, Jaime frees Tyrion from the Black Cells. Varys meets them in the tunnels and agrees to smuggle Tyrion out on a ship bound for the Free Cities. Jaime and Tyrion say their goodbyes. Then, against Jaime's instructions, against Varys' plan, against every rational impulse that Tyrion possesses, Tyrion goes looking for Shae. He finds her in Tywin's bed. He strangles her. Then he finds a crossbow in Jaime's chambers, loads it, and follows the sound of someone on the privy. The rest is history. In our version, the change happens at the moment Tyrion finds Shae. The canonical Tyrion is devastated, blindsided, broken, rage, and grief, simultaneously consuming the last of his restraint. He acts on impulse, on pain. The crossbow is in his hands before his rational mind catches up with his hands. Our Tyrion is the same man, experiencing the same devastation. But here is where we invoke what we might call the Tyrion paradox. The single most important quality of Tyrion Lannister is that he thinks. Even at his worst, even drunk, even in despair, even some part of Tyrion's mind is always running calculations. And on the night of his escape, there is a calculation available to him that he simply ignores in the canonical version. If he kills Tywin, he can never go back. He is a kinslayer. He is a confirmed traitor. Every Lannister ally in the world becomes his enemy overnight. If he doesn't kill Tywin, he is still a fugitive. But he is a fugitive rather than a monster. The distinction matters. It matters for Varys' plans. It matters for whatever future Tyrion might build in exile. And it matters for the relationship between father and son, which, buried under 40 years of contempt, still contains something real. Our Tyrion, in the moment he finds Shae in Tywin's bed, makes the harder choice. He leaves. He does not find Tywin. He does not pick up the crossbow. He follows Varys through the tunnels, and when the ship pulls away from King's Landing in the gray pre-dawn dark, Tyrion stands at the stern and watches the city. His city, the city he saved and was never thanked for, recede into the mist. He does not go back. He does not kill anyone. He weeps, which is something Tyrion almost never does. Then he goes below and asks Varys if there is any wine on the ship. There is. There is always wine on Varys' ships. Tywin Lannister wakes the next morning to discover that his son has escaped from the Black Cells. The jailer is dead. 2 gold cloaks are dead. The cell is empty. Tywin's immediate response is not rage. This is important. Tywin Lannister's responses to crisis are almost never visceral. They are calculated, cold, and extremely dangerous. He calls for Sir Meryn Trant, he calls for Qyburn, who is by now embedded in the Red Keep as his intelligence organ. He calls for a full accounting of every person who had access to the Black Cells in the past 12 hours. The answer that comes back is the one Tywin already suspected, Jaime, his golden son, his heir, the one he had forgiven for everything, for joining the Kingsguard and removing himself from inheritance, for killing Aerys, for the Stark Girl incident, the one he had carefully, patiently brought back into the fold. Jaime freed Tyrion. The coldness in Tywin's chest when he processes this piece of information is not grief. It is the recognition that the family he has spent his entire life constructing is more fragile than he allowed himself to believe. He cannot arrest Jaime, not publicly. Jaime is the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, as beloved by the small folk for his recovery from captivity, and arresting him on suspicion of freeing Tyrion would fracture the family's public image at a moment when they can least afford it. He can, however, make his feelings known in private. The conversation between Tywin and Jaime that follows is one of the most devastating in our imagined history. Tywin does not shout. He never shouts. He sits at his writing desk with the specific stillness of a man who has decided to win this encounter rather than feel it, and he takes his son apart sentence by sentence. Jaime freed a confirmed traitor, a man convicted of regicide, a man who shamed the family at trial, a man who would now spend the rest of his life as a fugitive embarrassment to the Lannister name. Jaime freed him knowing what it would mean. And the worst part, the part that makes even Jaime, who has faced down knights and swords and the contempt of half the realm, flinch slightly under his father's gaze. Tywin knows why Jaime did it. He doesn't say it aloud, but he knows. Because Tyrion didn't do it. Tywin knows Tyrion didn't poison Joffrey. He has known for some time. The evidence pointed too cleanly. The framing was too perfect. Tywin has been playing the game of power long enough to recognize a setup when he sees one. He tried Tyrion anyway, because a useful thing was available to him. The elimination of the son who embarrassed him, accomplished cleanly through the mechanism of justice, a shame into a solution. Jaime looks at his father across the writing desk and understands this for the first time, fully and completely, and the love he has always had for the man, complicated, conditional, enormous, curdles slightly at the edges. He doesn't say any of this. He says, "I did what I thought was right." Tywin replies, "You usually do. It is your most consistent flaw." The conversation is over. Nothing is resolved. Nothing between them will ever be quite the same again. Tyrion Lannister arrives in Pentos much as he does in the canonical story. The city is warm. The wine is excellent. The merchant prince Illyrio Mopatis is a generous host with a sprawling villa and a willingness to shelter interesting fugitives. The differences begin immediately. In the canonical version, Tyrion arrives as a man who has committed 2 murders, including patricide. He is consumed by grief and self-destruction, drinking himself into a stupor because the alternative, feeling the full weight of what he has done and lost, is unendurable. Varys has to practically drag him toward his destiny. Our Tyrion has still lost everything. He has still watched Shae, the woman he loved, or something he called love, perhaps something closer to desperate need, betray him. He has still been convicted of a murder he didn't commit by a father who knew he was innocent. He has still left his city, his family, everything familiar, on a ship in the dark, but he has not killed anyone. And this makes a difference that is perhaps harder to see but is ultimately more important than any of the geopolitical implications. He is not a monster, not yet. In the canonical version, the murders transform Tyrion, not into evil exactly, but into someone who has crossed a threshold that cannot be uncrossed. Our Tyrion has his grief and his rage and his intellectual brilliance entirely intact, without that particular moral wound underneath them. He is, in short, more useful, more himself. Varys, who has been managing this situation carefully, presents his proposition within a week of their arrival in Pentos. Daenerys Targaryen, the Dragon Queen who is currently working her way up the slaving coast, freeing cities, building an army, and nurturing 3 increasingly large dragons. She is going to come to Westeros eventually. When she does, she will need someone who understands how the Seven Kingdoms actually work. Not the theory of it, not the history, but the living, breathing, treacherous reality of it. The court politics, the noble houses, the hidden allegiances, the pressure points. She will need someone like Tyrion. Tyrion's response is more considered than in the canonical version. He asks better questions. He wants to know Varys' actual agenda, not the stated one, but the real one, the one Varys has never quite put into words. What Varys tells him, over a very long night and several excellent bottles of Arbor Gold, is this: the realm needs someone on the Iron Throne who was not raised to expect it, someone for whom power is a tool rather than an inheritance. The Baratheons have shown that the throne makes men small. The Lannisters have shown that the throne, when held by proxies, corrupts everyone involved. The realm has been ungoverned and mismanaged and bled for generations, and the only thing that might break the cycle is someone who comes at it from the outside. And Daenerys Targaryen grew up on a different continent with nothing but a claim and a will of iron. She is not perfect. She is not even necessarily right. But she is, at this moment in history, the most interesting option available. Tyrion finishes his wine, looks at the ceiling for a moment, and says, "All right, let's go." He pauses. "I'll need more wine for the journey." Back in King's Landing, something begins to happen that students of history will immediately recognize. The very thing that Tywin's presence prevented begins to occur the moment his attention is anywhere but completely focused. Cersei. With Joffrey dead and Tommen on the throne, Cersei Lannister has been maneuvering toward control of the Regency with the focused intensity of a woman who has been denied power her entire life and intends to make up for lost time. Or in the canonical version, Tywin dies before he can fully implement his plans to marginalize her, and without him, she has nothing and no one to stop her worst impulses. In our version, Tywin is alive and very much in control, and his plans for Cersei are clear. She is to be remarried to Willis Tyrell, cementing the Tyrell alliance and removed from court. She will be a great lady in the Reach, beloved and comfortable, and absolutely stripped of political relevance. Cersei finds out about this plan 3 weeks after Tyrion's escape. Her reaction is, let's say, extreme. The confrontation between Cersei and Tywin in the small council chamber is legendary in our imagined history. Not because anyone present ever described it in detail, but because of what happened immediately afterwards. If her 3 council members requested emergency reassignments, Qyburn began working on an experimental project that Cersei had apparently commissioned, and Tywin emerged from the meeting looking, for the first time in memory, slightly tired. What they said to each other in that chamber is partly speculation, but we can infer the shape of it. Cersei accused her father of discarding her the moment she ceased to be useful. She was right. Tywin pointed out that she had never been useful in the way she imagined, that her greatest contributions to the family had been accidental, and that her greatest disasters had been deliberate. He was also right. Neither of them is capable of backing down. The difference this time, the crucial difference from what happens in the canonical version, is that Tywin is still alive to enforce the outcome. Cersei can rage and scheme and commiserate with Qyburn in the shadows of Maegor's holdfast, but she cannot act without Tywin noticing. And Tywin, who has been noticing things his entire adult life, is watching her closely. What he does not notice, because Tywin's great weakness is that he watches the people he considers dangerous and dismisses the people he considers irrelevant, is what is happening in the shadows of the capital. Specifically, Littlefinger. Peter Baelish has been watching the Lannister family tear itself apart with the quiet satisfaction of a man whose entire career has been built on other people's dysfunction. He has his plans, his properties in the Eyrie, his careful cultivation of Lysa Tully. He is playing a very long game, and the one thing that could stop him, Tywin Lannister paying him serious, sustained attention, has not yet occurred. It will. But not before Littlefinger makes a significant move. Tommen Baratheon is a sweet child and, in a just world, would spend his adolescence doing something harmless, reading perhaps, or playing with his cats, or learning a trade. He is not suited for kingship. He He is not suited for the particular pressures of being a Lannister king with a Tywin-shaped shadow falling across every decision. Tywin knows this. His response to the problem of Tommen is characteristic. He does not attempt to make Tommen into something Tommen isn't. He instead constructs around the boy a scaffolding of advisors, procedures, and precedents that will keep the realm running, regardless of whether the king on the throne is brilliant or mediocre. What Tywin is building, in effect, is a system of governance that doesn't require a great king, a bureaucracy in the truest sense. The realm run by competent hands regardless of who wears the crown. This is actually a significant achievement. It is also something that every powerful lord in Westeros instinctively resents, because a well-run bureaucratic state doesn't need their autonomous power. It neuters them. The Tyrells chafe at it. The Martells in the south fume. Even Rose Bolton in the north, who has replaced the dead Robb Stark as the Lord of Winterfell in Tywin's new dispensation, is given a role that keeps him busy without giving him genuine independence. The absence of Robb Stark is one of the most significant differences in this timeline, because Tywin alive means the Red Wedding happens. The Freys and the Boltons carry out the massacre at the Twins exactly as planned. Robb Stark dies with an arrow in his side and a sword through his heart, surrounded by his broken and betrayed army. Catelyn Tully has her throat cut. The Grey Wind is killed in his pen, the North remembers. But in this timeline, the North has no king to rally around. No Stannis coming to march on King's Landing. No southern war to draw Lannister attention away from Winterfell. The North is broken, and it stays broken. For a while. Without Tyrion dead and Tywin murdered, the canonical triggers for Stannis' southern campaign changed significantly. In the original timeline, the news of Tywin's death, and the subsequent chaos in King's Landing, is part of what convinces Stannis to abandon his assault on the Wall and march south. Without that signal, without that obvious opportunity, Stannis stays where he is. He is at the Wall. He has his army, his Red Priestess, and his absolute conviction that he is the Lord's chosen instrument against the coming darkness. Melisandre is telling him that the great threat is not Lannister or Stark, but something else entirely. Something from beyond the Wall that makes all the southern politics look like children, arguing over who gets the bigger piece of cake while the house burns down around them. Stannis, for perhaps the first time in his life, is in the right place doing the right thing for reasons that are almost entirely correct. He meets Jon Snow. Jon Snow, at this point in the timeline, is still a man of the Night's Watch. Technically, he has just survived the wildling assault on Castle Black. He has watched Ygritte die. When he is thin and hollow-eyed and carrying grief he doesn't have words for yet. He is also, as Stannis immediately recognizes, the most effective military commander in the Night's Watch by an enormous margin, which is a bit like being the tallest person in a very short room, but still. Stannis' offer, take the Stark name, take Winterfell, lead the North against the Boltons and the coming darkness, is the same one he makes in the canonical version. Jon says no, same as he does in the canonical version, but here is where things diverge. In the canonical version, Jon's refusal is followed quickly by his election as Lord Commander, and then his controversial decisions about the wildlings, leading to his assassination by his own brothers. He dies. He is resurrected. Enormous drama ensues. In our version, the political situation in King's Landing is stable enough. Tywin is alive, the realm is firmly held, that the Night's Watch is not under the same existential pressure. Tywin, who despite everything is not stupid about the Long Night the way Southern lords usually are, has been sending regular shipments of dragonglass to the Wall since Maester Aemon's ravens first started hinting at something unnatural in the north. He doesn't believe it exactly, but Tywin Lannister has never become powerful by ignoring information he didn't like. Jon is still elected Lord Commander. He still makes the decision to bring the wildlings south of the Wall. The pragmatic calculus is the same in any timeline. Yet because the mathematics of adding 100,000 undead soldiers to the Night King's army is bad, regardless of the political situation in the south. The difference is, he doesn't get killed for it. The brothers who would have murdered Jon in the canonical version, men like Sir Alliser Thorne, like Olly, men whose hatred of the wildlings is personal and absolute, are present in this timeline too. But they are working against a slightly different backdrop. Stannis' army is camped outside Castle Black. the Lord Commander has the full and active support of the king who cares about the wall. When the conspiracy forms, it is smaller. When the knives come out, there are fewer of them. Jon survives. Barely. He is badly wounded in an attack that kills 2 of his conspirators and injures 3 others. But the ghost, his direwolf, tears out the throat of the man who would have delivered the killing blow. Jon lies in Maester Aemon's chambers for 10 days, running a fever that threatens to kill him more effectively than the knives did, while Stannis executes the surviving conspirators with his customary lack of hesitation. When Jon wakes up, he has a conversation with Melisandre that is slightly different in tone from the one he has in the canonical version. Because he hasn't died. He hasn't been resurrected. The question of his parentage, the question that Melisandre sees when she looks at him in the fire, remains unanswered, but it sits differently. She tells him only this: the fires show him at the center of everything. The fires show him as the linchpin. Jon, who is still running a slight fever, says, "That sounds like my problem. Here is the thing about Tywin keeping Cersei in check. It works, but only up to a point, and only as long as Tywin is paying attention. And Tywin Lannister is managing an entire kingdom. He cannot watch his daughter every moment of every day." The project that Cersei commissioned from Qyburn in the weeks after her confrontation with her father has been proceeding quietly in the dungeons beneath the Red Keep. Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, technically dead from the poison that Oberyn Martell put on his spear during the trial by combat, is not precisely alive, but he is not precisely dead either. Qyburn has been doing things that the Citadel would find uncomfortable to read about. Sir Robert Strong emerges from Qyburn's laboratory as a creature of roughly 8 feet, encased in armor, silent, and absolutely obedient to Cersei Lannister. Tywin, when he finds out about this, is furious. He orders the creature destroyed. Cersei refuses. A tense standoff follows, during which it becomes clear that Robert Strong could kill every Kingsguard member in the Red Keep without particular difficulty, and that Cersei has thought through the implications of this fact. Tywin makes the calculation. He does not press the issue, not yet, but the nature of their relationship has changed. Before, Cersei was a piece on his board. Now she has her own piece, a monstrous, unkillable piece that she alone controls. The balance of power within the Lannister family has shifted, slightly but perceptibly. Tywin does what he always does when a situation requires long-term management. He begins preparing several solutions simultaneously. He sends quiet word to certain maesters about vulnerabilities in undead physiology. He restructures the Kingsguard command. He accelerates the betrothal negotiations with the Reach. And he makes a note, cold, practical, written in the private cipher he uses for his most sensitive correspondence, about contingency plans for his daughter. Cersei, who has more of her father in her than either of them would ever admit, is making similar notes about him. The court of King Tommen is a beautiful, prosperous, well-administered trap, and the 2 most dangerous people in it are measuring each other with eyes that have never quite managed to be warm. The High Sparrow and the Faith Militant present differently in a world where Tywin lives. In the canonical story, the rise of the Faith Militant is partly enabled by Cersei's decision to arm them, a decision she makes in the power vacuum following Tywin's death, using the Faith as a weapon against the Tyrells, and then spectacularly miscalculating their willingness to turn that weapon on her. Without Tywin to prevent her worst impulses, Cersei arms a religious revolution and is surprised when it bites her. In our timeline, Tywin would never have permitted this. Tywin Lannister is not a religious man. He views the Faith of the Seven as he views most institutions, as a tool when useful, and as a threat to be managed when not. Yeah, the idea of arming an autonomous religious militia, of creating a parallel power structure that answers to the High Septon rather than the Crown, is precisely the kind of precedent that Tywin's entire political philosophy is designed to prevent. He receives the first reports of Sparrow activity in the Reach and the Riverlands with the attention he gives to all intelligence, carefully, analytically, without prejudice toward the information he wants to receive. His conclusion? The Sparrow movement is dangerous not because of its theology, but because of its demographics. These are people with genuine grievances, real hunger, actual experience of the war's devastation, who have found a leader capable of channeling their anger into organized form. The High Sparrow is not a fanatic in the traditional sense. He is something potentially worse, a genuinely principled man who believes every word he says. Tywin's response is the response he always deploys against organized opposition. He buys what can be bought, marginalizes what can be marginalized, and prepares to eliminate what can be neither bought nor marginalized. He summons the High Sparrow to King's Landing. The meeting between these two men, Tywin, the architect of Westerosi power, and the High Sparrow, who has voluntarily given up every comfort power provides, is one of the great philosophical confrontations in our imagined history. The High Sparrow does not flinch from Tywin. He does not flatter him, does not defer to him, does not seem particularly impressed by the gold and crimson splendor of the small council chamber. He simply looks at Tywin with the clear, the unwavering gaze of a man who has nothing to fear because he has nothing left to lose. "The poor are dying, Lord Tywin," he says. "Your war killed them. Your house's excesses killed them. The Seven see this, even if their servants do not." Tywin's reply is, "And what do you want done about it?" This surprises the High Sparrow. He was prepared for dismissal, for threats, for the elaborate contempt of a great lord confronted with inconvenient truth. He was not prepared for a direct question asked in apparent good faith. What follows is a negotiation that neither man entirely trusts. Tywin agrees to a formal program of Crown-sponsored grain distribution in the war-damaged Riverlands. The Crown will fund reconstruction of seps destroyed during the conflict. The Faith will, in return, refrain from political organizing and will route any grievances through the small council rather than the streets. The High Sparrow accepts this. He is not naive. He knows Tywin is managing him rather than genuinely responding to his concerns. But the practical benefits for the poor are real, and the High Sparrow is, above all else, a practical man about suffering. He leaves King's Landing without the army, without the militant, with a signed agreement and a cautious provisional peace. The Sparrows remain a movement, but they are not a weapon. This too will change when Tywin is no longer there to maintain the careful balance. In the canonical story, the Dornish plot against the Lannisters reaches its fruition when Ellaria Sand and the Sand Snakes murder Myrcella on the boat back to King's Landing, and then poison Prince Doran and Trystane as part of their revenge spiral. It is chaos, born of grief and rage, lacking strategic coherence. In our timeline, Oberyn Martell is still dead. He was killed in the trial by combat, Gregor Clegane's thumbs in his eyes, regardless of the fact that the mountain subsequently died of poison. Illaria's grief is the same. The Sand Snake's fury is the same. But Tywin Lannister is still on the small council, and Tywin, who arranged Myrcella's presence in Dorne and has been managing the Dornish relationship with careful attention, sees the Martell revenge plot coming approximately 3 months before it is due to be executed. His source is, as usual, not a single piece of information, but a pattern. The kind of pattern that only becomes visible to someone who has been watching long enough and carefully enough. Unusual travel by 2 of the Sand Snakes, suspicious contacts in King's Landing, a conversation that Qyburn's sources intercept between Ellaria and a servant in the Water Gardens. Tywin does something here that is entirely characteristic of him and entirely different from what any of the other players in this game would do. He writes to Prince Doran Martell privately and directly, not to accuse, not to threaten, to inform. He tells Doran what he knows, what his daughters are planning, and what the consequences will be if they succeed. Not consequences that Tywin will impose, but consequences in the natural logic of events. A Lannister princess murdered in Dornish waters will end any possibility of a lasting peace between their houses. It will give Cersei, who despises Dorne with a focused intensity, the justification she needs for open war. It will destroy the careful political coexistence that Doran has spent years constructing. Doran receives this letter and reads it 3 times. He knows Tywin is right. He has always known that Illaria's grief, however justified, is not a strategy. He has always believed in the long game, in the Targaryen restoration, in Daenerys, in the patient accumulation of advantage. Illaria's plan would destroy all of that. He confines his daughters and writes back to Tywin. The letter he sends begins, "You are a cold-blooded man, Lord Tywin, but you are not wrong. What follows is a negotiation that neither house entirely wants, and both houses understand to be necessary. Myrcella is returned to King's Landing. Ellaria and the Sand Snakes are kept in the Water Gardens under a comfortable but firm house arrest. A new marriage alliance is discussed, not Myrcella, who is too young and whose betrothal is now politically complicated, but a longer-term arrangement involving trade, shared governance of the Stepstones, and a face-saving formula for the Martells that acknowledges Oberyn's death as a tragedy without attributing blame. It is not justice. Ellaria, in her tower room in the Water Gardens, knows it is not justice and will never forgive it, but it holds for now. Tyrion Lannister arrives in Meereen having navigated, among other things, a kidnapping attempt by Jorah Mormont, the same as canonical, a trip down the Rhoyne, an encounter with stone men that leaves him shaken but physically uninfected, and the growing conviction that Varys is playing an even longer game than he previously understood. He meets Daenerys Targaryen in the throne room of the Great Pyramid. She is nothing like what he expected. He expected zealotry. He expected the particular dangerous confidence of someone whose entire identity is built on a claim to power they have never actually held. He expected, if he's honest, something like his sister, someone whose beauty and certainty concealed a fundamental incapacity for the kind of nuance that actual governance requires. Daenerys is not that. She is young. She is idealistic in ways that make Tyrion instinctively nervous, because idealism, in his experience, is what happens before the compromises, and the compromises are where people like him are usually sacrificed. But she is also genuinely intelligent, genuinely listening, and possessed of something that Tyrion has almost never encountered in a ruler: the capacity to change her mind based on new information. He tells her who he is, all of it. His family, his crimes, his escapes. He does not tell her that he was on the verge of killing his father and chose not to. That part he keeps private for now. It is too complicated, too personal, and too useful a piece of information to give away before he understands what she actually needs from him. What she actually needs from him, as it turns out, is someone who will tell her when she is wrong. The campaign in Meereen is going badly. The Sons of the Harpy are killing her unsullied in the streets. The freedmen she liberated are, in some cases, starving because the entire economic structure of the city was built on slavery, and removing slavery without replacing it with something functional has created a humanitarian disaster. The Great Masters, stripped of their property, are funding insurgency because they have nothing left to lose. Tyrion looks at this situation with the eyes of a man who has governed a city in wartime, who kept King's Landing fed and functional during the siege of the Blackwater, who knows what it means to manage a population on the edge of desperation, and begins to work. His first proposal is the one that makes Daenerys look at him differently. A graduated transition rather than an immediate abolition. Not slavery restored, that is non-negotiable, and Tyrion doesn't even suggest it. But a period of paid service, legally enforceable contracts, a formal recognition that the people she has freed need economic infrastructure, not just freedom. She hates this idea. She fights him on it for 3 days, citing her principles, citing the suffering she has witnessed, citing the betrayal of everything liberation is supposed to mean. Tyrion fights back. Not rudely, not cynically, but with the relentless practical logic of someone who has seen what happens when ideology meets an empty granary. Eventually, she listens. It is the beginning of the most productive working relationship in the history of the Targaryen dynasty. Time is the one enemy that Tywin Lannister cannot outmaneuver. He is not old. That exactly. In his mid-60s by the time of these events, still vigorous, still sharp. But the strains of the past few years have taken their toll in ways that he acknowledges to no one, and notices only in private, the slight tremor in his right hand when he is tired, the way certain mornings take longer to get going than they once did. The dreams he has occasionally, of Joanna mostly, of the woman he loved and lost, that leave him briefly, infuriatingly human. He is still the most capable person in the Red Keep by a significant margin. But the margin is narrowing. What begins to preoccupy him in this period is succession. Not succession to the throne. Tommen is on the throne, and when Tommen eventually dies or abdicates or is otherwise replaced, the succession will work itself out according to the laws of gods and men. What preoccupies Tywin is succession to himself. Who will run the realm when he is gone? Jaime cannot. Jaime is a sword, brilliant and brave, and incapable of the kind of patient administrative genius that Tywin's system requires. He is also Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, which bars him from the succession entirely. Cersei is actively dangerous. She has her undead creature. She has Qyburn. She has the cold intelligence of someone who has been waiting for power her entire life and is becoming less patient as her father visibly ages. And Tyrion, who might have been able to manage everything, who might have been the successor Tywin never acknowledged wanting, is in Essos, serving a Targaryen pretender. In a rare moment of something approaching honesty, Tywin writes a letter to Tyrion. It is not an apology. But Tywin Lannister does not apologize. It is more in the nature of a business proposition. The realm needs capable governance. Tyrion has demonstrated, in his time as Hand, in his management of the Blackwater, in everything he did before his trial, that he is capable of providing it. Tywin is willing to arrange a pardon, to arrange Tyrion's return, to arrange a formal role in the governance of the realm. In exchange, Tyrion returns, and is what Tywin has always wanted him to be, useful, deployed, and definitively under the Lannister flag rather than the Targaryen one. Tyrion reads this letter 3 times, then he writes back. His response is not a refusal exactly, it is a list of conditions, and the conditions include one that Tywin finds more than any other, genuinely, personally unexpected. Acknowledge me, Tyrion writes. Any not as your useful bastard, not as your shameful secret deployed for practical purposes. Acknowledge me as your son, publicly and in the records of the realm, and I will consider coming home. The old man sits for a very long time with this letter in his hands. What Tywin Lannister does next is the most debated moment in this entire alternate history, because he could say no. Saying no is what everyone expects. Saying no is what Tywin has, functionally, been saying for decades. The contempt he showed Tyrion from birth, born of grief and resentment and the grotesque unfairness of blaming an infant for the death of his mother, has been so total, so consistent, so woven into the fabric of their relationship that simply reversing it seems impossible. But Tywin is dying, not quickly, not from any specific disease. But he can feel the machinery slowing, and the man who has planned for every contingency is beginning to understand that this particular contingency, his own absence, cannot be fully managed in advance. He can build systems. He can train successors. He cannot fill the specific hole that his own particular genius will leave, and Tyrion is the only one of his children who has it. He thinks about Joanna. He allows himself to do this more often now, in the private hours before dawn, when the castle is quiet and the work of the realm can wait 30 minutes. He thinks about what she would say. She would not have done what he did. She would never have permitted the contempt, the cruelty, the systematic diminishment of the child she died bringing into the world. He knows this. He has always known this. Yeah, he chose to do it anyway because the grief was unbearable, and Tyrion's face looking up at him from the crib was the face of the thing that killed her. It was not the child's fault. He knows this too. Tywin writes back to Tyrion. The letter is short. Tywin has never been effusive, and it does not contain anything that could be characterized as warmth. But it does contain this single sentence, which those historians who eventually find the correspondence agree is the most surprising thing Tywin Lannister ever committed to parchment. You are, in the ways that matter most to me, my son. I have not shown this adequately. I do not know how to correct that. But the acknowledgement you asked for is granted. Here is the tragedy of this alternate timeline. Yet the element that transforms it from a story of political intrigue into something more personal. Tyrion doesn't come back, not because he doesn't want to, not because he doesn't receive the letter. He does, and he reads it perhaps 50 times. And there is a night in Meereen when Missandei finds him sitting on a balcony at 2 a.m, looking at the stars with an expression she has never seen on him before and cannot quite describe. Something broken and open. He doesn't come back because events don't allow it, because Daenerys is about to sail for Westeros, and Tyrion is her hand, and the entire structure of what they have built together, the alliance with the Greyjoys, the Tyrell connection, the Dornish promise, requires him to be in it. He cannot step away now, even for a father he never had and might finally be getting. He writes back to Tywin. He tells him about Daenerys. He tells him, and this takes him 3 drafts to get right, that he believes she will be good for the realm, better than any alternative currently available. He asks his father to consider the possibility of a negotiated transition rather than a war. Tywin's reply is exactly what Tyrion expects, because Tywin is still Tywin. I will not negotiate with a Targaryen, but I will observe carefully before I act, which is not something I am accustomed to saying. For Tywin, this is practically a declaration of love. For Tyrion, it is enough. They will not see each other again before Tywin dies, because Tywin, 18 months after this correspondence, suffers a stroke in his chambers late at night. A small one, not immediately fatal, but leaving him diminished in ways he finds intolerable. He manages the realm for another 6 months from a chair rather than on his feet, and then a second stroke takes him at his writing desk, working as he has always worked until the last possible moment. The letter he was writing when he died is to Tyrion. It is not finished, it trails off mid-sentence. Nobody knows what the rest of it was going to say. Tywin Lannister dies in his chair, and within 3 weeks the order he spent his life constructing begins to unravel. Not catastrophically, not immediately. The systems he built are real and they function, and the realm is more stable than it was in the canonical version of events because the Red Wedding happened. The North is broken, and there is no major armed opposition to the Lannister-Tyrell alliance that runs the throne. But the human element, the specific genius for managing competing interests, for seeing 3 moves ahead, for maintaining the web of incentives and threats that keeps everyone in line, is gone. Cersei moves immediately. Her first act is to dismiss Kevan Lannister from the small council. Kevan was Tywin's steady, capable, underrated lieutenant. The kind of man who implements other people's plans with perfect reliability and never needs credit for it. Without Kevan, the council loses its institutional memory and its ability to execute. Her second act is to bring Qyburn formally onto the small council, in a role she creates specifically for him, Master of Whisperers. Varys, who remained in King's Landing as a careful double agent through all of this, departs quietly for Essos 2 days after this appointment. And he does not say goodbye to anyone. Her third act is to effectively dissolve the agreement Tywin had made with the High Sparrow, stopping the grain distributions and reneging on the reconstruction funding. The reasons she gives in council are budgetary. The real reason is that she resents the Sparrows as a restraint on her freedom, and she is no longer being restrained. The High Sparrow, who has been cautiously optimistic about the Tywin arrangement, looks at these developments with the calm clarity of a man who has been told something important about the nature of power. The faith militant begins to quietly arm itself. Jaime Lannister has been watching his father decline with the specific horror of someone who loved a man they could never entirely like, and who is now watching the one force in the world capable of keeping his twin sister's worst impulses in check disappear. He knows what Cersei is. He has always known. He loves her anyway, or he has loved something that might have been her at some point. Or he loves the idea of her that he constructed when they were children and has been maintaining ever since. Reality be damned. But there is something about watching Cersei without Tywin, watching her move through the court with Ser Robert Strong at her side, and Qyburn whispering in her ear, and Tolman doing whatever she tells him, and none of the checks that existed for the past 4 years in any functioning state. That forces Jaime to confront something he has been avoiding. His sister is going to destroy the realm, not out of evil exactly. Out of something that looks like love. Love for her children, love for her family, love for the power that she sees as her only protection against a world that has spent her entire life reminding her that she was born the wrong gender. But the effect is indistinguishable from evil, and Jaime, who killed one mad ruler to protect the city from wildfire, is looking at another one. His conversation with Brienne of Tarth at this point in the timeline is different from the canonical one, because she finds him not in a pen at Harrenhal, but in a quiet courtyard of the Red Keep, where he is sitting alone and looking at his golden hand. She does not know him well yet. She knows his reputation. Oathbreaker, Kingslayer, man who killed to serve his own interests and abandoned every vow he made. She has been told to distrust him. But she also knows that he freed the Stark girl and helped her reach safety. She knows, because Tyrion told her, indirectly through Podrick, that it was Jaime who let Tyrion escape, that Jaime has been the quiet force for something approaching decency in the middle of the Lannister court. She sits down next to him without being invited. "Your sister is going to destroy everything," she says, because Brienne does not do subtlety. Jaime looks at her for a long moment. "Yes," he says, "I know. What are you going to do about it?" This is the question that defines the rest of Jaime Lannister's story. Daenerys Targaryen lands on the shores of Dragonstone with 3 grown dragons, the Unsullied, the Dothraki, the Iron Fleet under Yara Greyjoy, and the improbably effective Hand of the Queen, Tyrion Lannister, son of Tywin, Elu, who has spent the past 2 years becoming the most competent administrator in the known world. The landing itself is the canonical one, kneeling in the sand, pressing her hand to the earth of the land her family lost before she was born. The dragons wheeling overhead. What's different is the political landscape she's landing in. Tywin is dead. Cersei holds King's Landing through Robert Strong and the small council she has packed with loyalists and yes-men. The High Sparrow has armed his faithful and is in a standoff with the crown that could erupt at any moment. The Tyrells are alienated by Cersei's bad faith and are quietly in communication with Tyrion, whom Olenna Tyrell respects in the way she respects anyone capable of keeping up with her in conversation. In the north, Jon Snow has been elected Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, has survived the assassination attempt, and is now fighting a different battle. The battle to make the realm understand that the army of the dead is real and is coming, and that every political conflict in the south is meaningless noise compared to it. He sends ravens south. Tyrion is the one who takes these ravens seriously. Because Tyrion has been briefed by Varys, because Tyrion, who was given dragonglass specimens by Sam Tarly during a brief and unlikely correspondence, has seen what dragonglass does to the undead. Because Tyrion, whose mind runs best on impossible problems, has been quietly thinking about the long night, the way he thinks about all the worst-case scenarios, thoroughly, obsessively, and with a complete willingness to accept the most unpleasant conclusions, he tells Daenerys. He shows her the evidence. He watches her face as she processes the information, the way someone brilliant processes something that upends everything. "Dragons," she says finally. "Presumably," says Tyrion. "Dragonfire seems like the most promising option, though we'll need dragonglass as well, and Valyrian steel, and probably an army that actually believes the dead can walk. Can I convince them?" Tyrion thinks about this honestly. "You're going to have to show them. Nobody believes things like this until they see them. But you have the kind of entrance that tends to make people revise their assumptions." She smiles slightly. "Because of the dragons. Largely because of the dragons, yes." What follows is not a simple story. Cersei in King's Landing is simultaneously managing the faith militant standoff, the Targaryen invasion, and her own son's increasing misery. Tommen, who is not built for any of this, is being torn apart between his mother and his wife, the Tyrell girl Marjorie, who is kind to him and who has the Tyrell political machine behind her, and whose interests are not Cersei's interests. The trial that follows, the faith militant demanding that Cersei answer charges of adultery, incest, and regicide, is, in this timeline, both more and less dramatic than in the canonical version. More, because Cersei has Robert Strong and is genuinely willing to use him, and less because without the Wildfire Gambit, Tywin confiscated most of the Pyromancer's stores years ago and had them destroyed. The Sept of Baelor does not explode. What happens instead is uglier and slower. A war of attrition between the crown and the faith, all fought in the streets of King's Landing with the small folk who remember Joffrey and hate the Lannisters choosing sides based on their own suffering. Robert Strong kills people. The faith militant kills people. Margaery, who understands that this is destroying everything her family came to King's Landing to build, does the brave thing. She walks into the Sept of Baelor herself, surrenders to the High Sparrow, and confesses everything she knows about Cersei. The High Sparrow, who is genuinely not interested in power for its own sake, releases her immediately. He does not want a queen, he wants justice. Cersei, when this happens, makes the decision that defines her. She cannot win the conventional war. She knows this. So she does what desperate Lannisters do. She makes the problem disappear. Not with wildfire. She doesn't have wildfire. And thanks to Tywin. But with Robert Strong, alone, in the Sept at night, and no witnesses, and no survivors, the High Sparrow is found dead in the morning. The faith militant doesn't dissolve. It doubles in size, because nothing radicalizes a movement faster than the murder of its beloved leader. And now it has genuine grievances, genuine martyrs, and the knowledge that the queen killed their shepherd. This is the situation Daenerys' forces find when they land on Dragonstone and send their first envoys to the capital. Jaime Lannister, who has been watching all of this with mounting horror, finally makes his choice. He rides north, alone, with no one but Bronn who follows him for reasons that Bronn articulates as, "I've come this far, haven't I?" He has a letter for Jon Snow from Tyrion. It begins, "My dear Lord Commander, my employer has dragons and would like to meet you." The meeting at Dragonstone between Jon Snow, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Stark Bastard, the man who held the wall, and Daenerys Targaryen, Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, Mother of Dragons, the woman who burned slavers for sport, is different in this timeline than in the canonical one. Chiefly, Tyrion is there, and Tyrion knows Jon. Not well. They met once years ago on the road to the wall, and Tyrion gave him a piece of advice about wearing his bastard status as armor. Jon remembered it. Tyrion remembered the dire wolf. Having Tyrion as translator, not linguistically but politically, emotionally, relationally, changes the dynamic between Jon and Daenerys. In the canonical version, they circle each other with exhausting caution, neither willing to bend, yet while Tyrion watches from the sidelines, frustrated. In our version, Tyrion has already briefed Daenerys about Jon in terms she actually understands. He is the most genuinely honorable man you will ever meet, which in your experience is probably rare enough to be suspicious, but in his case is entirely real. Do not mistake honesty for stupidity. Do not mistake his directness for naivety. He is telling you exactly what he believes because he doesn't know how to do otherwise. And to Jon, privately, the night before the meeting. She is nothing like your idea of a Targaryen. She has her father's intensity and her family's certainty, but she has also had the experience of being wrong, and of choosing to be better. That is rare in anyone with this much power. Give her a chance. The meeting is still difficult. Now Jon still will not bend the knee. He still needs the dragon glass. The logic of the long night is still the overriding argument, but the conversation moves faster, with less wasted suspicion. And when Daenerys says, "What do I get if I help you?" and Jon says, "The chance to fight for the living instead of the throne," and there is a silence. Tyrion says quietly, "He's not wrong." And Daenerys, who trusts Tyrion's judgment in a way she trusts almost no one's, makes the decision 2 days earlier than she might have otherwise. She flies north. She sees the Night King's army. The rest is war. The war against the dead is, in broad strokes, the same war. The army of the dead is enormous. The Night King is ancient and alien, and possessed of a patience that makes Tywin Lannister's long game look like a quick hand of cards. The weapons that work against them, fire, dragon glass, Valyrian steel, are in desperately short supply. The difference is in the preparation. Because Tywin, in the last months of his governance, actually took the Ravens seriously. He opened the dragonglass mines under Dragonstone. He sent what Valyrian steel swords were in the crown's possession north to the wall. He did not do this because he believed in the long night. Tywin never fully believed it, but because he believed in the principle that threats should be investigated rather than ignored. The equipment is there. Not enough of it, never enough of it, but more than in the canonical version. And critically, Cersei does not betray the living. In the canonical story, then Cersei's decision to hold the Golden Company back and let the North be destroyed by the dead, her calculation that whoever wins the long night will be weakened enough for her to finish off, is perhaps the worst single decision any character makes in the entire series. It is the decision of someone who has stopped thinking about the future and started thinking only about the immediate present. In our timeline, Cersei is in a different position. King's Landing is already under siege by faith militant forces. Robert Strong can kill people in detail, but he cannot kill a movement. The city is ungovernable. Cersei is losing, slowly, in the grinding attrition of a civil war she started and cannot finish. She needs allies. Jaime is in the north. Jaime has sent her ravens explaining the situation, explaining in terms that are almost offensive in their clarity what is actually coming, what it actually means, what happens if the dead win. Cersei, whose survival instinct is ultimately stronger than her desire for power, reads these ravens in her tower with Robert Strong standing silently at her back. She sends the Golden Company north, not out of nobility, out of pure, cold self-interest. because a world ruled by the dead has nothing for her in it, and Cersei Lannister has never been able to imagine a future that doesn't include herself. The army of the dead is stopped, not without enormous cost, not without losses that reshape houses and families for generations, but it is stopped. The Night King is killed, and it is Arya Stark, all moving through the dark like something the Death God dreamed. Who does the killing? Because some things are the same in every timeline. The war ends, the world begins, slowly and painfully, to figure out what comes next. Jon Snow is legitimized as Jon Stark in the aftermath of everything. Daenerys, who is now firmly allied with the North, endorses it. He never learns his true Targaryen parentage in this timeline, because the specific chain of events that led Sam to that discovery in the canonical version doesn't occur in the same way. This is arguably a mercy. He is Lord of Winterfell. He is Robb Stark's acknowledged heir, or was before Robb's death in the Red Wedding, the wound that the North still carries. He is a lord who fought in 2 wars and survived both, with a dragonglass-edged sword and a direwolf at his side. Daenerys sits the Iron Throne. She is not entirely what she wanted to be. The war cost her Jorah Mormont, cost her 2 of her 3 dragons, cost her things she doesn't have names for. But she sits the throne, and Tyrion is her hand, and the council she builds around her is the most diverse and capable Westeros has seen in living memory. Tyrion Lannister never went back to King's Landing until it was taken. The father he almost killed and then chose to spare died without them reconciling fully. The letter that trailed off mid-sentence sits in a box in Tyrion's chambers, read so many times the edges are soft. He never knows what the rest of it was going to say. He has decided it was going to say, "I am sorry." It probably was not going to say that. Tywin Lannister almost certainly was not building toward an apology. But Tyrion allows himself this one small lie because some wounds cannot be healed and need something to cover them. And imagining his father finally saying the thing he could never say is the covering that Tyrion chooses. Cersei is tried for her crimes, the murder of the High Sparrow, the incest, the actions she took, and the wars she started. The trial is long and exhausting and produces in the end not execution, but a permanent exile. She lives out her remaining years in Casterly Rock, stripped of political power, watched at all times, sustained by enough comfort to make the cage pleasant and enough restraint to make it unmistakably a cage. She does not seem to mind as much as everyone expected. There is something about having fought and lost that she finds finally restful. Jaime visits her once, 2 years after the trial, and they do not have the conversation anyone expects. They sit in the gardens of Casterly Rock in the late afternoon light, and Cersei looks at the sea, and Jaime looks at Cersei, and at some point, she puts her hand on his, and he lets her. Some things don't need words. Ser Brienne of Tarth is named Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, the first woman to hold the position. She accepts it with the expression of someone who cannot quite believe they are allowed to have the thing they have always wanted. Sansa Stark governs the North in Jon's name, which is to say she governs it in her own name because Jon is frequently away, and the administration of the North requires someone present, patient, and capable. She is all of these things. She is 23 and she has survived Joffrey's court and Littlefinger's schemes and the long night. And she looks at the world with eyes that have seen too much to be frightened of it anymore. Arya Stark does not stay. Arya has never been able to stay anywhere, and the North is too well governed now to need the particular skills she has developed. She goes west, beyond the maps, beyond the edge of what anyone knows. She sends ravens occasionally, brief, uninformative, slightly ominous ravens that confirm she is alive, and that she has found something interesting, and that no one should worry. Everyone worries. So what does it mean? What does it mean that Tyrion lowered the crossbow? That he walked away from his father's privy without firing? That he chose, in the worst moment of his life, to be something other than the Kinslayer history was ready to make him? It means everything and nothing, the way all choices do. Tywin lives, and the realm is more stable for it, and the Red Wedding happens, and Robb Stark dies, and that is a wound that never fully heals. The calculus of history is never clean, but Tyrion is not a murderer, and that distinction, invisible to the events of the realm, irrelevant to the armies and the dragons and the dead, is everything to the man who made it. He is the same Tyrion. He drinks too much, loves too desperately, thinks too quickly for everyone else to keep up. He is still the son who was never wanted and made himself indispensable anyway, but he did not cross the threshold. He did not become the thing that the worst moment tried to make him. And in the end, this is the story of Tyrion Lannister. Not the dragons, not the politics, not even the war against the dead, though he helped win all of those. The real story is a man in a tunnel beneath King's Landing with a crossbow in his hands and a lifetime of pain behind him and a choice in front of him. He chose mercy, not for his father, for himself. He never regretted it, not once. That's our journey through the roads not taken. A Westeros where one man's choice not to pull a trigger reshapes the entire history of the Seven Kingdoms. The eternal question of this alternate history is, did it make things better or worse overall? Robb Stark is still dead. The Red Wedding still happened. In some ways, Tywin's continued presence delayed justice for crimes he committed, and yet, the realm is more stable. The Long Night is better prepared for. Tyrion ends up somewhere he can actually do good. History doesn't deal in better or worse usually, just different. What do you think? Would a living Tywin have eventually made peace with Tyrion? Could Cersei have been stopped if her father had lived longer? And what about the North? Does the Red Wedding wound ever truly heal? Drop your theories in the comments. If you want more explorations of the roads not taken in the Seven Kingdoms, subscribe and hit the bell. New alternate histories every week. The night is dark and full of theories, and we have plenty more where this came from.